Hi, I'm Hannah Redman, and during this week's webinar, I presented on updated quarantine and isolation guidance from the New York State Department of Health. On May 31st, the Department of Health issued updated quarantine and isolation guidance, which replaced the prior guidance from March 1st. Overall, very few changes were made. However, there are a few changes worth noting. First, the guidance introduces new quarantine and isolation exceptions for children in childcare and early childhood education settings. And second, the guidance eliminates specific guidance for individuals ages 5 to 11 and consolidates that population with the age 12 plus age group for quarantine purposes. So the result is that all individuals who are ages 5 and up are subject to the same quarantine guidelines. Now to the new quarantine and isolation exceptions for children ages 0 to 4 in childcare and early childhood education settings. Under the guidance, children who are ages 0 to 4 who have a known COVID exposure may attend childcare or school on day 6 as long as they're completely asymptomatic. So there's still a 5-day quarantine period, but on day 6, those children who are aged 0 to 4 can go back to childcare or their early education setting. For children under the age of 2, a 10-day quarantine period is recommended, but they are allowed to break their quarantine on day 6 to go to school or childcare. And the exception is limited to those settings. So in other settings, children ages 0 to 2 must continue to quarantine. On days 6 through 10, children who are 2 to 4 should wear a mask, but masking is not recommended for children under the age of 2. The guidance also provides an isolation exception for this population of children, which provides that children who are 0 to 4 should isolate per the standard guidance that's applicable to everyone for at least 5 days unless they continue to experience symptoms, in which case they should isolate for a longer period. Children ages 0 to 4 may, however, return to childcare or school on day 6 if they are fever-free for at least 24 hours without the aid of medication, and if their symptoms are beginning to improve. The general isolation guidance tells us that isolation can end on day 6 if the person who has tested positive is able to wear a mask on days 6 through 10. If a person is unable to wear a mask on days 6 through 10, they must remain in isolation through day 10. We also know that children under the age of 2 are not recommended to wear masks. However, the new exception under the guidance from the Department of Health that came out last week says that children who are younger than 2 may break their isolation period to attend childcare or go to an education setting on day 6, even though they can't mask. So that's the exception created by the Department of Health's new May guidance. And as with the quarantine exception, the guidance specifically provides that children under the age of 2 must continue to isolate in other settings. So it's a limited exception that applies only to childcare and early education settings. So to briefly recap this already brief recap, the May guidance from the Department of Health is substantially similar to the guidance that we were operating on before the new updates, except with respect to children ages 0 to 4 in childcare and early childhood education settings.